Hi guys, so we're going to pick up with solving linear equations. So what we really want to do is use these four properties of equality to solve for the unknown variable in a linear equation. So what are these properties? So you got the addition property of equality. Basically means if you add the same thing to both sides, then you're preserving the equality. Subtraction property of equality means if you subtract the same value from both sides, you're still preserving the equality. Multiplication, division, the same thing. If you multiply both sides of the equation by the same value, or if you divide both sides of the equation by the same value, you are preserving the equality. This will help us to isolate the variable, which means solving for that particular linear equation. So let's go ahead and pick up with number one, and I'll show you how we go ahead and do that. So looking at number one here, we want to get this x value by itself. So in order to do that, we have to move everything else to the other side of the equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and subtract 8 to both sides of the equation. Basically, you want to do your addition and subtraction first before you do your multiplication and division in most cases, because it makes the problem easier. So in doing that, it gives us 3x, because this goes away, is equal to, and then 17 minus 8 is 9. So now we just have 3x is equal to 9, which is a multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is division, so we're going to divide both sides by 3, and that gives us x is equal to 3. Now, of course, you can go in and check your value. If you take this solution that we have here, x equals 3, plug it into the original equation, so 3 times 3 plus 8 is equal to 17, you will see it's true. For our purposes here, I'm not going to check every one, I'm just going to solve them, but that is how you would check. Looking at number two, we're going to go ahead and get rid of this 4 first, so we're going to add 4 to both sides of the equation, and that gives us 2/3 x is equal to 10. So here you have an option, because 2/3 x basically means 2/3 times x. So you would say, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2/3, and you can absolutely do that. The other thing is, if I want to get a 1 when I have a fraction, what could I do to get a 1? Because if I had a 1x, that means that I have the x by itself. Well, you can multiply by the reciprocal. So if I multiply both sides by the reciprocal, this just becomes 1x, or x. And of course, 10 times 3 over 2, I can just put that over 1, and that gives me 30 over 2, which is equal to 15. Now remember, when you divide with fractions, what do? You multiply by the reciprocal. So in essence, we're really doing the same thing, we're just doing it in one step. So in this problem here, x is equal to 15. All right, so looking at number 3, what we have here, if you noticed, that the 5x and the minus 9x, those are like terms. Now, we talked about like terms in a previous video, so we want to go ahead and take care of that first before we go moving anything. It just is easier to clean up the one side of the equation before you go moving anything. So 5x minus 9x is negative 4x. Then we have the plus 7 is equal to negative 21. So now I can go ahead and move this 7 over by subtracting 7. And then that will give me, that goes away, so negative 4x is equal to negative 28. And now this is a multiplication. Negative 4x means negative 4 times x. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by negative 4. And that leaves me with x is equal to 7. If you were to go ahead and plug that back into the original, if you were to plug in the 7 here and plug in the 7 here, you would see that that is true. All right, so the last problem right here, there's two things that you can do. Technically, this 2, I'm multiplying it times this 3x minus 2. So this is a multiplication. So I could divide by 2 to both sides if I wanted to. But you'll notice that if I do that, on this side, 5 over 2 is a fraction. So that really doesn't help me all that much, because I'm creating a fraction when I don't have one in the beginning. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and distribute the 2 to both sides. Now, either way it'll work, but if I don't have to work with fractions, I'm going to avoid working with the fractions. So that's going to be 6x, 2 times 3x, and then 2 times negative 2 is minus 4 is equal to 5. Now I can go ahead and add 4. And then that gives me 6x is equal to 9. And now I'm going to divide by 6 because that is a multiplication, 6 times x, so we're going to opposite, which is division. So I get x is equal to 9 over 6, which reduces to 3/2. So the answer there is 3/2. Try that again. All right. So hopefully this helps you with solving linear equations. You get the variable on one side. And I'm going to stop here. In the next video, I'm going to go ahead and do solving the equations with variables on both sides.